Hello everyone and welcome back to the Belgian Beer Brothers channel. I'm still Cedric here in Antwerp and welcome to another video about yet another Belgian beer. I initially thought let's make another quick video. I already did some videos about this brewery, so I don't have to explain the history anymore. This could be quick, not so much. Because apparently I chose a beer that in itself has a 140-year history. Today we are going to talk about Duivels Bier or Devilish Beer. Now, it has gone through a few name changes and it has a very rich history. So rich that, and so far back, that I actually couldn't find as much as I wanted to. This beer has originally been brewed since 1883 and that comes back in the label and the bottle cap. It was actually a local specialty beer brewed for pilgrims who came on a pilgrimage to Halle and the area around Halle. And according to the stories, it was named after a Walloon pilgrim yelled out, "C'est une bière de diable," after drinking this. Which actually translates to, "Wow, that's the beer of the devil." And after that, they named it Duivel. So not Duivels Bier, not Devilish Beer, but just Devil. Sounds familiar? Originally, it was brewed by Petre Frère, or the Peter brothers, in Halle as Diable de Halle. I found an old label, I'll put it up here somewhere. So, the Devil of Halle. It was a Scotch ale, brewed with the raw materials of a faro, because they did lambic and faro and Geuze. However, this was brewed with English hops and yeast. So it was actually a spontaneously fermented sour brown ale. Sort of, or strong Scotch ale. But the key word here is also sour, because it was brewed like a lambic. And since it was brewed like a lambic, they probably added candied sugar as well. Now, in 1900, Charles and Joseph Petre even won a prize with this beer, the Grand Prix, the grand prize for the beer. And just to illustrate how important these guys were for Halle, they were one of the first huge industrialized factories of that time. And there's even a street named after Joseph Petre. Now, in 1923, Moordgat, back then it was called Moordgat and not Duvel Moordgat, launches Duvel, a heavy, back then dark Scotch ale, made with Scotch yeast. And, of course, these two beers were quite alike. Now, Moordgat called their beer Duvel. This was called Duivel, although it's not clear to me as to when they started calling it Duivel. I have no idea. Anywho, a legal battle about this name goes on for years and years and years. I have no idea what the outcome was. I didn't find anything about that. So as I said in the beginning of the video, I didn't find as much as I wanted to. I am actually baffled and left with some questions. In 1952, Petre Frère closes down and the Duivel brand goes to brewery Van der Linden, the other large brewery in Halle. Now, Van der Linde was an iconic brewery in Halle, and they produced all, just like Petre Frère, lambic, faro and Geuze. It was founded by the brothers Gijsels, so not Van der Linde, in 1893, but it was operated by the Van der Linde family from 1930. In 1958, they changed the label to a more Gothic font to lay greater emphasis on the devilish idea. I think I'll put the label up here somewhere. Now, in the 60s, it is said that they changed the recipe and the beer to a strong blonde ale. However, I found no evidence whatsoever for this. So, honestly, I only found one source. It's not even a reliable one. I think they might have mixed it up with the Duvel story. In 1996, Van der Linde eventually registers the name Duivels Bier. Duivels Bier translates to beer of the devil or the Devils Beer, which was, back then, one word. In 2001, the brothers Van der Linde stopped working. They're pensioners now. And after 3 generations of brewing, there was no succession. They also didn't find a buyer. And bear in mind that only a few years before, about 16 years before, Frank Boon had just started his brewery. So he wasn't too keen on buying another brewery, I guess. But in 2002, Boon does save the brand and the recipe. So he has bought that part of the portfolio, and since then it's brewed at the Boon brewery. He did decide to return to the old label. Now, he wasn't a fan of the Gothic font, so he made it a bit more neutral. And that's that. In 2003, the name undergoes a subtle change. So subtle that most people won't even notice it, but it went from Duivels Bier to Duivels Bier. Didn't catch that? Okay. So it went to Devilish Beer instead of the Devil's Beer. He put a space between the two words, so Duivels and Bier. That significantly changed the meaning, because now Duivels is an adjective, meaning devilish or demonic. So he called it devilish or demonic or satanic, if you will, beer instead of the Devil's Beer. And I actually think that it was more or less for aesthetic reasons, because that fits on the label better. Ever since, Boon brews about 200 hectoliters per year of this beer. That's not much, that's 20,000 liters, that's about 60,000 bottles. Most of it is indeed bottled, and about 20% of it is sold locally. And practically all of it stays in Belgium. On the other hand, it's also the beer for Carnaval in Halle, and the giant Vaantjes Boer actually carries it with him in kegs to provide the parade of this thirst-quenching devilish beer. And I think that some pubs have it kegged as well. Now, I don't have the proper glass. It is normally poured in a classic chalice, which to me is best compared with De Gouden Carolus by het Anker. But since I don't have the Duivels Beer glass, I'm using my trusted tasting glasses. So to round up the story, these days it's actually a strong dark ale. Again, the story that I heard that it was changed to a blonde ale also said that Frank changed it back to the original recipe. I'm really not sure about that. I think that's a load of bullcrap. Anywho, this is a beer of high fermentation, 8% ABV, and they used roasted malts and added candied sugar. So, yeah, a very classic, strong, dark ale with some Faro influences and a lot of history. Honestly, I can't wait to try it out. So, again, a lovely branded bottle cap, not a Boon brewery bottle cap, but a real Duivels Bier bottle cap. It says 1883 Duivels Bier. Oh, cool. And just see that they use leaf hops, so fresh hops, and 3 kinds of malted barley. Now, of course, there is some roasted malt in there as well. Getting tired, I guess. Smells rather malty, but also a bit roasty, and even though there are no spices in there, it smells a little bit spicy. Lovely color. It's like a molten caramel color. Also some off-white to light beige foam, quite dense foam. Can't fit it all in my glass. Quite clear. This does remind me of a Scotch ale actually, so. It also has a slight caramel scent. It has some sort of dry fragrance over it. Can't really put my finger on it. Let's have a taste. Ooh, it's a surprise. Honestly, I expected this to be sweeter, but it is quite rather dry. Yeah, the initial taste is, in fact, a slightly sweetened dry beer. I don't know if that sounds logical. I do get that iconic candied sugar taste, but it's not a really sweet beer. It is in fact a rather dry and probably long fermented beer. Yeah, what can I say about that? It's also not sticky, not thick. It does have a full mouthfeel, but not a sticky mouthfeel, so. That's actually very nice. No real bitterness in there, but the dominant flavor here is that dryness. Still, I do get in the roof of my mouth a bit, yeah, spicy notes. Very, very odd. Probably from those roasted malts and the most likely slightly old hops, as a lambic brewer uses most often. And I do detect some earthy or nutty flavors in there. So maybe some chestnuts, roasted chestnuts. Reminds me of winter roasting chestnuts on an old stove. Okay, yet another surprise. I get that. A very slight licorice taste right here in the back. Didn't taste that before. Anyway, like I said, a very nice surprise. Again, a beer that I enjoyed researching. I love that long history. It's a shame that I couldn't find any more details. But it is quite hard to find details about breweries that closed down, especially if they closed down decades ago. But yeah, another nice surprise is that taste. It's an absolutely lovely taste, not too sweet. Honestly, I would have this as a winter beer as well. How shall I score this? Let's call this a 3.5. Yeah, 7 out of 10. 3.5 on Untapped. Why? Because it's a lovely beer. It's very well made. It is very qualitative. Maybe not entirely my cup of tea. However, I do like this very much. This does remind me of the Kazematten beer, the Grotte Santé. So, yeah. I'm gonna leave you guys with that. Again, if you can get your hands on this, please do so. Guess it will be a bit harder since, well, only 200 hectoliters is brewed. But then again, you'll find it somewhere eventually. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for tuning in again. If you want to see more, hit the bell icon after you subscribe and you'll get notifications. And if you have any questions, remarks whatsoever, leave them down in the comments and I will make sure to address them. Cheers, you guys.